I swear I can't speak. It's crazy to think that my brother was chosen Pope today. We kind of knew he was unique. We also made fun of the fact that he was Pope. At age 73, Pope Leo's older brother tells him the terrible truth. The elder brother of Pope Leo the XIV, Louis Post, said that the time of his brother's election was one of shock and awe. This isn't just a normal family fight or another church scandal. Not at all, this is private. That's deep. Remember that you can't leave this video in the middle of it. Not only will the finish leave you speechless, but this story is also different from anything else you've seen online this year. Are you ready? Let's go. What's going to happen next will really shock you. What brothers do for each other. This is true about Pope Leo the XIV. The man has always had it in him, from the start. When someone takes on a big responsibility, they don't always try to change things or make them from scratch. Sometimes, they build on what was already working. That's Pope Leo for you. He didn't show up with a gun and act like he was going to make everything right. Instead, he agreed with the tone and spirit that Pope Francis had worked hard to create over the past few years. In all honesty, that says a lot since Pope Francis wasn't just a pope. He was a nice change. Someone who brought this deep sense of spiritual care and grounding to the Vatican. And Leo the XIV, didn't just nod to that history. He said, "I'm walking in those shoes, and I'm walking with all of you." For example, Leo said in that interview in 2023, "Our power is to serve, to walk with priests, to be pastors and teachers." I mean, how real is that? That's so delightfully not power-hungry. It's not about being smarter than other people by using big words and fancy names. It's about going with them. Isn't that what real leadership looks like? That doesn't make you feel small but instead makes you feel better. That was also the mood of his very first speech as Pope. He said right away, "I'm here to walk with you, not ahead of you." That whole idea of going on a journey with God's people. That's so deeply Francis, and Leo's taking over without missing a beat. What kind of secret does a brother keep from his brother for more than 70 years? And why did he finally decide to speak up now, after all this time? Pope Leo's older brother just told the truth, and it's making people gasp. He's 73 years old. There was never any reason for the church to want you to hear that story. Do not skip this part, because what he says at the end will shock you. As Pope for the first time, he went ahead and paid the most heartfelt respect to Pope Francis, while the whole world watched. Not in an act of being polite, look at me being polite way, but in a true, warm way that makes you think he really means it. Everyone was aware of something important Francis taught us: we are called to share our faith with joy. Not sad faith with strict rules and limits, but happy faith in Jesus as the Savior that lives and breathes. I mean, can you imagine how calming that must have been for all those people who watched, especially now when the world seems to be in such a mess? Let's talk about making bridges now, since Pope Leo is interested in that. When he first stepped out on the porch of St. Peter's, he didn't make it about himself. It was all about us. He said that as a church we need to work together to keep our arms open and build bridges. Of course, that's exactly what we all need more of right now. A church that doesn't close doors but instead keeps them open. Less separation and more connection. To be honest, in a building that has generally been known for its walls rather than its bridges. That's a strong and lovely message. Now for the twist. People in the Vatican say that Leo the XIV is the least American of all the Americans. In no way is that a jab at Americans. It's more about how open-minded he is. When he comes in that way, it's not my way or the highway. He is calm and thoughtful, and he listens more than he talks. He wasn't the one making trouble or setting flags when he was in charge of Peru's bishops. He was the voice of peace in the room who brought people together, even though they had different ideas. And it's not easy to do that in a church where many people are trying to get attention for their own ideas. Leo, on the other hand, gets to the middle. And not in a plain, dull way. In the sense of, let's all sit down and really hear each other out, isn't that uncommon these days? No doubt that his style is a little more official than Pope Francis's. He doesn't hug as often, but it's more organized. What the lesson is really about is still service, still putting Christ first. He's not here to be a pop star. He's not here to get cheers. He came here to make himself small so that Christ could be praised. That saying, make yourself small, really hits home, doesn't it? Just think about it. How many leaders do you know who are willing to lower their pride to help something bigger? Even though Leo XIV is new to the job, it already feels like he spent his whole life getting ready to be a boss. Not since. He didn't want the attention because he wants it, but because he knows how to handle it well. And maybe we need that kind of leadership right now. They aren't flashy or loud, but they are grounded, humble, and want to work with a church that wants to heal, grow, and open its arms a little wider. Isn't that something that you should keep? What their family saw that no one else did. There is a man behind all the robes, titles, and holy rituals, but only his family really knows him. His name is Robert Provost, but everyone knows him as Pope Leo XIV. But let's be honest, titles can make someone seem invincible, like they're not doing anything wrong. That's not the whole story. Louis, his brother, says that if you take away all the flash and ceremony, you'll find someone who has been through more quiet battles than anyone would guess. Robert's story isn't just about how he became a priest. It's about having a huge load that most people can't even think about. And really, doesn't it make you wonder how many powerful people are breaking in without anyone knowing? Louis has known Robert his whole life and is his brother. Because of this, he can give us a unique, deeply human look into who Robert really is. The weight of duty was too much for him. Louis says that Robert first wanted to be a priest, then a bishop, then a cardinal, and finally the pope. With each step, he had to make adjustments that affected not only himself but also his whole family. Could you picture always picking your calling over Christmas dinners, birthday hugs, or just laughing with the people you care about? Because he did that. Louis has a good memory of it. There were many years of vacations with just a phone call, and sometimes not even that. As kids, most of us think that our brothers will always be close by for family gatherings and holiday toasts. But Robert gave up everything for something greater than himself. And it wasn't a pretty surrender. It was quiet, lonely, and felt very strongly. You'd think he'd never look back with such a strong calling, wouldn't you? But even he had doubts sometimes. Robert went through a very dark time of sadness after their mother died in 2011. You might pause and think, wait, so even a future pope can feel like he's losing his way? Yes, that's right. Louis has a very clear memory of that time. He says that might have been his worst time. Robert would wonder if the decades of hardship and service he had put in were really making the difference he had hoped they would. And don't we all feel that way sometimes? That constant fear that what we do and the decisions we make might not be enough. It makes me feel a little better to know that even Robert, who is very pious, had those normal fears. But sadness wasn't the only thing that made things hard. The pressure never let up. It felt like the worry level went through the roof when Robert was made a bishop. For Louis, it was those late-night calls from Robert, where they would just talk about the big choices that could affect whole communities. Can you picture being awake at 3 a.m.? Is it possible that the choice you made today will either hurt or help a lot of people tomorrow? There was a lot of pressure, even though the preacher always looked relaxed. It was there every night. Still, the way Robert dealt with criticism was one of the most interesting things about him, even before he was pope. And let's be honest, the people who lead faith groups are constantly being criticized. Not long after he became an Augustinian priest, people really fought against the changes he wanted to bring about. Some people didn't just not agree. They were mad. Robert, on the other hand, never answered back or called anyone out in public. He would instead do something that almost no one does these days. They were asked to meet him alone and in person. There should be no defensiveness or haughtiness, just honest discussion. Who does that these days? How many people really listen when they are being criticized? He became known for being able to separate the problem from the person. Lewis says that even when someone attacks him directly, he doesn't take the criticism personally. That takes mental maturity that most of us are still working on, even with the people we see every day. It's nice that Robert once told his brother, "I can disagree with someone's opinion without questioning their worth as a person." People are fired for a tweet or banned from friends because they have a different point of view, but here's someone who leads with understanding instead of ego. Besides that, he never seemed like he knew everything. Robert was never too proud to ask for help, no matter how many titles or awards he had. They were the kind of people he trusted and who could keep him in check, show him the way, and cheer him on. Because, let's be honest, moving up any ladder can make you lose touch with reality, but the church order is especially hard. But Robert always tried to stay grounded in humility, in the relationships that counted, and in the advice of people who had been through the same things. It's easy to picture Pope Leo XIV when you think of him. The calm man in white who gave hope to a lot of people. But Lewis gives us something much better. A look at the real guy behind the name. A man who missed many dinners with his family. A man who cried by himself after his mom died. A man who wondered about everything, even why he was here. A man who stayed up late and carried crap that wasn't even his. But most of all, he was a man who always listened, learned, and loved deeply, quietly, and with ease that never changed. Isn't that what real strength looks like? People say that blood is more dense than water. What if, though, blood holds secrets that are too dark to ignore? His brother, Pope Leo's older brother, just spoke out after decades of silence. He is 73 years old. I promise you that what he says will make you question everything you thought you knew. What was worst was the last thing he said, which is the scariest of all. Do not miss it. Revelation is Pope Leo's older brother. You know those times when life really hits you hard? When your heart skips a beat, you feel it in your chest. Your brain is still trying to figure out what happened. That's exactly how Louis Post felt when he saw his younger brother walk out onto that famous platform at the Vatican as Pope Leo XIV. Really, can you picture? 1 minute you're telling childhood stories and arguing over who broke the kitchen clock or gets the last piece of cake. The next minute he's being revealed to the world as the new leader of more than 1 billion Catholics. Pope Louis said it hurt his voice to talk about it. But really, how could it not? Anyone would be scared in that situation. He said it made him feel shocked and amazed. You could tell those words weren't just a news release. They were real. They came from somewhere deep inside his heart where surprise and joy were battling it out. What's the matter, though? Doesn't this always happen when you hear big news that will change your life? There was a quiet fear going on beneath the cheers, the smiling cardinals, the fanfare that comes with papal robes and that famous white smoke. Not anger, not enmity, not even sadness, just this deep, aching worry. People around the world were happy, but Louis and his other brother John Faust were trying to figure out what this meant for their family, especially Robert, who is now Pope Leo XIV. Why should you blame them? It's not often that your brother turns into the most important religious person in the world. John was especially honest about how his thoughts changed all the time. What do you know? He wasn't nice about it. He said he was filled with great joy and happiness. However, he felt a lot of stress right after that. Who wouldn't be, really? It wasn't just a sales pitch. It was a huge change. John couldn't help but think, how is Robert going to handle this? You can't just smile and wave from windows when you're Pope, let's face it. It's about how to lead a church around the world that is going through some rough times right now. John knows that for sure. He himself said it. Everything is becoming more and more difficult because of this huge duty. He's not only worried about Robert getting tired. He is thinking about how heavy Catholicism is and how the community is already split up. He is also thinking about how much more stress is coming. That must be really hard to carry, both as a faith leader and as a brother who just wants his siblings to be safe, happy, and successful. Then there's the touching part where they talk about their parents who died too soon. There is no way that Louis and John's parents could have been here to witness this moment, but they would have felt the same mix of deep joy and worry. That kind of pride makes you cry and hold your breath for a moment. But when it's windy, it's hard not to wonder if the wings will stay on. Every parent wants their child to fly. Do you understand? It's normal to want the best for someone you care about but also be afraid of what that best might cost them. The boys' honesty about everything in the story makes it even more moving. They're not trying to sound too good or serious. They're not acting like everything is fine because they are standing in the shadow of something great. They are just two brothers who are trying to understand how their brother now has a place in the world that he didn't have before. Take a look at that. Their brother is no longer just Robert. He is the 14th Leo. There are guards around him. He knows the rules. He has more responsibilities than the roof of the sign chapel. Do they still call him at night like they used to? Can they get together and laugh about something silly they did as kids or talk about the good old days? Or is everything behind them now? Even though he hasn't really gone anywhere, you can tell they miss him already. Because miles aren't always the best measure of distance. It's about how someone changes. And even though they're very proud, that pride is mixed with hunger, worry, and hope. I hope he doesn't go crazy. I hope the world doesn't eat him up and throw him out. Hope that their brother is still their brother under the robes, titles, and demands. That kind of story sticks with you. Not because of fame or power, but because it's to help people. It's about love. The song is about how our most important times are never just ours. They change everything in a quiet way, even the people who love us the most. There are changes all the time, even good ones. We all know that change costs something. Even though everyone is interested in Pope Leo I the 14th, it's the words of Louis and John Faust, quiet, thoughtful, and full of heart, that remind us of what's really going on. For every great man or strong leader, there's usually a family cheering them on from the stands and whispering to each other in private. Are you sure he's okay? Are you sure this is too much? In what ways did fame change their relationship? Picture yourself living your whole life with your brothers being ridiculously close. You know the kind of closeness where you call each other to talk about something random you saw on TV or to share a funny joke you just heard. Or even to rant about a news story that makes you mad. That's how Louis, John, and Robert were connected. They were brothers, but more than that, they were best friends, daily partners, and sounding boards for each other. But now everything has changed. Not just changed like someone moved to a different place. Not really. The only thing that has changed is that Robert is now the Pope. Like the Pope. Is that even possible to understand? Naturally, things aren't as easy as they used to be. It's not just about the titles, the robes, or how serious everything is. It's about how the boys really got along with each other. They used to be very close, but now that easy, natural friendship is in danger. Louis even said something that you'll likely think about for a long time. He was thinking about things and asked, will we be able to have that brother relationship anymore, or will we be sharing it with the world? And to be honest, that question hits you differently because it's not just about missing time with your brother. It's about losing a part of him that made you feel private, special, and alone. John added his little voice and tried to explain how they used to talk before everything went wrong. He talked about how every day the brothers would talk on the phone. Take a moment to think about that. Every day. There was no difference between them when they were talking about deep things like faith or when they were just having fun playing Wordle together. It was a steady beat that made them feel good. Things like that you don't think about until they're gone. The really scary thing is that it's not just about time zones or distance. It's about getting in. Without any doubt, Louis said that he's worried. Angry that he wouldn't get to see his brother and that he might never have another, hey, let's get coffee, moment. He even asked, will we ever see him again? You can feel the pain in that, don't you? It's not exciting. It is very real. That fear that someone you care about will suddenly be out of reach, not because they don't care, but because someone else needs them more than you do. He also said that the whole thing was bittersweet, which is probably the best word for it. Wow, what an honor, right? The fact that your brother is now Pope is not only important, but also painful because it costs something. He said it was already weird not having anyone to talk to. And that quiet sadness stays with you. This is where things really start to happen. Louis, being the caring big brother that he is, asked Robert straight out if he was sure that he wanted to take on this huge duty for the rest of his life. And Robert, his answer was the most humble thing I've ever heard. It was just quiet trust that he said, I will accept it. It's God's will. It's in his hands. No doubt or drama. He felt in his bones that this was the right road for him, even if it meant leaving parts of his old life behind. Things like talking to his brothers every day. Then there's Louis again, being so honest and open that it makes your heart sink a little. He said he was still shocked by everything. It will take some time. The shock from the beginning still hurts. He said, I don't think it ever will. And who could blame him? It seems like your brother is always in charge of the Catholic Church. One minute he's making fun of Wordle. Who doesn't need time to think about that? But behind the title, the Vatican walls, and the world's attention, these brothers used to laugh, fight, support, and lean on each other through life. That triangle now feels like it's shaky, not broken. Just getting used to it. And getting used to it is painful. It feels soft. You can't talk about it without your voice getting a little weak. Why did Pope Leo's brother wait so long to tell everyone what he knows? He was either keeping them safe or keeping us safe. At age 73, he's finally going to talk. And what he says will make you doubt the man that millions of people used to look up to. And just when you think you know everything, the ending twist comes out of nowhere. Keep watching until the end. How the Pope's past shapes who he is now. Faith wasn't just a part of life for the Post family from the start. It was what kept their home going. He had Catholic parents named Louis and Mildred. They didn't just go to church on Sundays and be done with their day. Not at all. They lived out their faith. Louis Marius Provost, his dad, was a very responsible man who worked full-time as a school director and also got involved in parish life right away. I really mean it when I say, involved. He wasn't just a name in the church. He was the leader of the Altar and Rosary Society, which is a big deal. He even helped set up a church event where 1,000 polio shots were given out. Who the heck does that? That's the kind of person he was. Always there and always giving. Then there was his mom, Mildred. She was a force all by herself. Did work as a library worker at Mendel Catholic High School. It was clear that school was very important to them. She did more than just read, though. She was also beautiful in church shows, even when she wasn't the lead. She was also in charge of the St. Mary Altar and Rosary Society. It looked like she had 10 hats on at once, but she wore each one with a quiet ease. She also really cared about schooling, just like her husband. In 1949, both of them got graduate degrees from DePaul University, which was a big deal at the time. That alone tells you everything you need to know about how they act. You might be wondering, that sounds like a great family, but were they really that religious? Yes, they were. Linda George remembers it so well because she grew up right next door to them. His family was a very strict Catholic faith. Both the mom and dad were. She said they always went to church. Can you picture being that consistent? No matter the weather, every day of the week or a holiday, they were in the pews, present and busy. They didn't just check off faith. It was how they lived their lives. And growing up in that part of Chicago made everything worse. Back then, living on the South Side meant that your friends were like family. And your family and your faith were the most important things in your life. Reverend Tom McCarthy, who has known Pope Leo since the 1980s, said it very well. It was very family-oriented and Catholic. You went to Catholic schools, lived in the neighborhood, and worked hard, he said. That's the kind of place that does more than just raise kids, it changes them. Pope Leo is the shining example of that. The Provosts were well known at St. Mary of the Assumption. Noelle Nice remembers them very well because he sat behind them at Sunday Mass. She said they were always there. Consistency like that steady, quiet presence, it leaves a mark. Plus, 2 of Mildred's sisters became nuns, so it looks like religious life was pushed in the whole family. As a normal part of who they were, they did it. In a family like that, how could you not be led to a spiritual path? But here's something that makes Pope Leo even more real. You'd think that as Pope, he's now alone, right? All serious and far away up in the Vatican. Not at all. The man still calls his brothers often. During the years before he became Pope, he and his brother John talked every day. And it's not just serious talks either. They began with Wordle. Wordle it is. After that, words with friends. Isn't that just too cute? Even though he is in charge of the church, he still makes time to play word games with his brother every day. In that way, he is humble. And those chats aren't just for fun. Pope Leo really does respect their advice. John says he's the type of person who talks up when they feel strongly about something. When conviction strikes, he won't hold back. For him, that's something that goes back to his childhood. Louis, his other brother, said that he hopes his brother can bring people together because that's what a brigadier does. Someone who doesn't just pray to God, someone who also hears what cardinals, nuns, priests, and bishops have to say. That willingness to be open-minded comes from family too. They are worried that things will be different now that he is Pope. It's a lot to handle with the routine, the duties, and the attention. But now comes the beautiful part. No matter how far he goes or how much stress he is under, the ties he has with his family, his roots, and his faith cannot be broken. They're a part of him. They give him direction and keep him grounded. Isn't that pretty uncommon these days? So, when you look at Pope Leo the 14th and wonder how he got to be the way he is, so thoughtful, so grounded, so principled. Just look at the people who raised him, the streets he played on, the benches he sat in every Sunday, and the brothers he still plays word games with. It's not just a story about getting rich. It's a story about how faith, family, and strong values can change a person in the most beautiful and long-lasting way. This is the end of the movie. Thanks for seeing. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to get more. Click on the movie that comes up next to read more exciting stories.